So we had much of the game set up for the intro. It's not completely set up, but, some of what I had from setup comes from the sequence of play. So on the first turn, you don't do anything in the deck phase. Debt limit not on the first turn. Award phase. We flipped these up already during the intro. Global demand. Okay. These, the way I handle them, because it's a tiny little set, and yeah, you could shake them up in a cup or whatever, and that might make more sense. I've been using a bag because these tiles and these tiles need a bag. Why don't I just use another mechanism? I was rolling dice for this solo because, without the camera, it's easier. Okay, so the first one is fish, which is going to provide 2 victory points and +1 debt. Got to be careful because that spice one has a minus debt, which I didn't expect. Furs, which is 2 victory points and a treaty point, and that's because we're in the succession era, these first 2 turns of the game. Why are these turns smaller? Yeah, no good reason. And finally, tobacco, which is the nasty one. It's 3 victory points, but it adds a debt. Well, okay, the fish adds a debt too. And I don't know why the fish adds a debt. Okay, and these I'm going to put like this, just so they don't bother me. This is the easy part of the game, the mechanical stuff. But when we get to some of the decision making, one of my problems with doing games like this on video is it is a heavy Euro. Most of what's going on is this internal debating and thinking and everything. You might have broad strategies, like I want to aim to win the 7 Years' War, or I want to aim to win it on the French and Indian War, whatever you're talking about. You have specific things you want to do. That's possible. That's a level of play that's beyond me right now on only my second playing. But I do see the possibility for that, just like, I don't have any good examples because I don't tend to play the heavy Euros much. They're not my type of game. Okay. Reset phase, exhaustions would be removed. All last turn's investment tiles would be shifted into here. I actually put them somewhere else, probably the bag. No, because I need the bag, possibly. Deal cards. New investments are revealed. We did that already in setup. And now each player is going to get 3 events. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do before I look at the Brits is I'm going to look at the French because they have the initiative at the beginning of the game. They never had it again in the game I last played, which is why they won. But the reason is one of their decisions, they have to decide not only what they want to do, but whether they want to go first or force the Brits to go first. Hey, I didn't explain these tokens. These are kind of optional, but basically I use them to mark you can use them to mark which investment tile you use. They're your 4 actions. I guess you could do other things with them. And then I move them into the used box with that marker so I can kind of reconstruct the turn in my head. Kind of a go thing to try to remember what's going on. We dealt the event cards. So now each player has to select their ministry cards. And they do that with a thought towards these and towards the investment tiles that are available. Okay. Let me look at what my events are. Okay. So all of my events are triggered by a tile. So I've got to kind of look. Let's look at how many event tiles there are. There's 2 event tiles only. So I'm probably only going to get one of them. One of them is diplomacy, one of them is military. That means unless I've got something special, I can't play this tax reform one. Okay. And I'm looking at keyword mercantilism, but maybe I'd rather do this one. Let's take a look at these. Military spending overruns. You have to have more available debt than your opponent to play this. and your opponent has something bad happen. Well, no. You have to have more than your available debt to get the bonus. Something bad happens to your opponent, but nothing happens to you. If you have the bonus, your opponent has to do it twice. They can be different damage to their war effort. The War of Jenkins' Ear, if I have a mercantilism, and I have a card that can do that. Anson returns with Spanish gold. That's the English effect. Cartagena Disaster. Place a conflict marker in a British flagged market in the Caribbean. Okay. Well, the Caribbean is, it's worth a victory point, but not much. Nothing's really worth a lot, though. All the value is going to be on the second turn after the war. Caribbean doesn't have a treaty point, and it doesn't involve this, so, given that it's my only event that I can possibly play, I may want to do this. And it gives me a bonus of 1 diplomacy, which could be its own action. Okay, let's look at these. So New World Huguenots gives you mercantilism. This is kind of a cool card, but I completely failed to use it properly last game that I played. I got this out early. Once per turn during your French action, i.e. you exhaust it, you get one of these 1 Huguenots, and there's only 2 of them in the game, markers, which you can put in 1 French flag territory. Territories are the square areas. They're the actual they're territories. They're actual stuff you own and claim, as opposed to just flagging markets or forts or whatever. In North America or the Caribbean, where there isn't one already. The Huguenot Marker increases the CP cost to impact that space by 1. But you can also flip it over once per turn, and you reduce the economic cost of a marker in the same region. Region is the whole board set, by 1. If the British ever take it, that marker is permanently removed from the game, i.e. you can't bring it back, so you still only get 2. Now, that seems like it has a certain effect, but later in the game there's actually a card that allows you to regenerate these guys, well, unflip those guys, so that you get to do that reduction again. I basically never used the reduction capability on that, because my memory's not good enough. And this card will be gone. This is only a Spanish succession era turn card, which means it's kind of out of your mind, and then you're like, whoa, wait, I can do that? So I just completely forgot about it. What about my others? I could reduce debt by 1 or 2 at the end of each peace turn. Well, there aren't a lot of peace turns in the S period. There's 1. So I don't know why it's worded that way. We have the Court of the Sun King. This is kind of cool because it has 2 keywords, which means next turn's events I'll be more likely to get this, and it increases the value of Europe by a victory point. So I could turn this up when if it looks like I'm going to win Europe, but leave it in reserve and maybe not use it otherwise. The Cardinal Ministers, once per turn at the start of your action round in which your investment tile has any diplomatic action. That action gives you an extra dip point for each of these: Savoy, Sardinia, and prestige places in Spain and Austria. Now, at the beginning of the game, I have 1 of those. I could get up to 3 total. Savoy and Sardinia. Savoy gets me part of half of this. If I get this other prestige point in Spain, the more expensive one, I would get the capability to do the Mediterranean intrigue, which allows me to place conflict markers. This one, if I have both Sardinia and Austria, I get a 1 total. It costs me 1 to unflag an area. Now let me look at these, whether they have additional restrictions. So these are European. Mediterranean intrigue can only go in Spain, Sardinia, or Austria. That's the only place that the revolts can go. Yeah, the counter doesn't tell you everything you need to know. And this other one, which I don't know what it's called, Italian Influence, pay 1 DP to unflag a space in only Spain or Austria. And it does say Spain or Austria there, so that helps guide you. That's a nice card. In and of itself, it would be great if I had a governance card. I don't. If I play this one, I've got to count on getting a governance event that I can play. Here's the other one that I might want. Once per turn, you can use military points to shift spaces in Scotland or Ireland, which aren't normally military affected. They're diplomacy spaces. Once per turn on a different action round, that different action round may be in the errata to have gone away. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I'm not marking up my cards. I figure if basically my feeling is if GMT wants to provide a patch, yeah, okay, that's great. But otherwise, my handwriting is so bad with the kind of ink that'll work on these cards. You may spend 3, doesn't give you 3, to score a victory point, max 4. For each French flagged such space and the Jacobite victory marker. Okay, so if I end up flagging a bunch of Scottish and Irish spaces, and it can't be on the same turn that I use this, and I think that makes sense, I can score some points. And if I got the Jacobite victory marker in play, I could score points. This is a neat card. Immediately remove this card from the game after British play of the British have a couple of cards that can make this card unavailable. Otherwise, it's available in all 3 eras. Now, one question is, let's take a look at the Jacobite Rebellion. We have a pretty good basic tile there. So that becomes kind of interesting. Cardinal Ministers, I am not going to play this because it's a keyword thing. Like I'm not going to play the finance one, although the finance one is an interesting choice. At the end of each peace term, reduce your debt by 1. I'm going to have the option of this card again next time. Do I want that? I don't know, but I like the Sun King one better than that. So my call now is between the Sun King and hoping that works and Jacobite Uprisings, which will not give me a keyword no matter what. How much military is there here? There's a fair amount of military. How much use is military? Well, I'm going into a war turn. I'm going to hold off on this and put these 2 in my space. Now remember, if I don't turn them up, I can discard, I can put them back in my hand and replace it with something else. So that will work. My goal is to try to get the War of Jenkins' Ear into play. With the military, what's my advantage with that? I'm sorry. That's a mercantilism. Yeah. That gives me an extra dip. This is a pretty minor event, so I may not end up playing that event. I don't know. Whatever. What does that mean? Do I need to go first? Well, I think the War of Jenkins' Ear, being able to play that, is overall a nice thing. This is not a bad card, or not a bad tile. But all right, I'm going to roll a die here, whether or not I'm going first. On odd, I'll choose to go first because there's a reason. There's a single tile that will trigger the event that I need. There's only 2 events. Yeah, I'm going to choose to go first this time. I get to keep the initiative marker there because that impacts who gets the initiative next turn if it's absolutely tied. Now we go to the Brits. The Brits have to also choose their minister cards. Okay. This one requires you to have more available debt than your opponent. You hurt your opponent's debt limit, and this could cost them victory points. And, I'm sorry. This one requires you have an economic event, which is not available. So I don't need to think about this right now. More prestige spaces in Scotland or Ireland is the bonus for this. Unified Parliament reduces Scottish intrigue in Europe. It gives you one extra diplomacy for unflagging in Europe only. Now, you could say, well, how is that useful if you don't have at least a major or minor action in diplomacy? Well, you're allowed to spend debt to give yourself extra points in a special. So because it's an event action, it gives you those extra points in a major action, or you can allocate it to a major or minor action that you already have that has those points. So you don't have to worry about, well, what can I use this with? The bonus, if you have more prestige spaces in Scotland and Ireland, and there are 2 total, is that you get 2 victory points. That's pretty good. I like that one. And then we have Great Northern War, which is style. Shift to political space in the German states. If both are now British flagged, you get 2 victory points. I already got one. That almost kicks off automatically. So I am going to take Jonathan Swift. Spaces in Ireland and Scotland only cost one less to flag. That will help me towards this. So this is great. And if you control any spaces in Ireland, your minor diplomatic options can be used to remove French flags in Europe. Remember, minor actions can't unflag stuff. This is a powerful card, especially in conjunction with the Great Northern War. So I like that. But let's look at the other one. The other one, well, I'm not interested in this card right away, but I might be interested in a card that doesn't necessarily help me. So this lets me draw and discard an event card for free. There aren't a lot of events out, so I don't know how much luck that I'm going to have with that. And please note, I'm going second, but I don't know that yet, right? The initiative phase comes after this, so I may think that I'm probably going to go first because the French, the advantage is generally to going second. So because the French have the initiative, they will probably hand me the first play. So I will probably get this. So I'm pretty happy and sure about that. I'm wrong, but maybe next turn it'll work. Okay. Once per turn, I can spend to build cheaper to build a squadron. And if I have a squadron in Europe, I can discard an event from my hand and take 1 TRP. That's not bad. Well, if I want to put it out there. At the start of each turn, increase your debt limit by 1. I like that one. This is not at the start of your turn. This has been modified in the errata. Yeah. Actual playing pieces need to be updated. To at any time, so or on any of your action rounds. So you take an exhaustion marker for it. And once per turn, you can play an economic event, even if your selected investment tile does not have an economic major action. Ooh, that's just opened this as a possible card to play. If I put this one out. Interesting. This also increases my debt. These become a synergy that I kind of like. And I would have the bonus, so yeah. That's very interesting. I think that's what I'm going to go with. Let's take a look at the last one. East India Company. Score 1 victory point for the following unexhausted advantages. You control textiles, silk, fruit, fur trade, and rum. Well, right now I have one, which is grain, wheat. These other ones, there's some in India, some in the Caribbean, some in North America. Can I aim for them? Sure. If I had mercantilism, I would go for it. If I had an event that matched mercantilism. But instead, I'm going to take the Bank of England. I think that's going to work well for me. Now, the problem with this one, play an economic event even if your selected investment tile doesn't have an economic event, major action. It still has to have an event marker, and there are only 2 event markers out there. So there's a good chance that I'm not going to be able to play both of them. But this kind of ensures that even if I go second, I get to take one of these. All right. The French have chosen to go first. That's the next thing that happens in the initiative phase. And now we go to the action phase. And I've got the dice over there to remind me that the French get to go. They're going to be taking their first action, picking one of these. We know what they're going to pick. They want the War of Jenkins' Ear. In order to do this, they're going to play the New World. They're going to turn up the New World Huguenots, and they're going to grab the one event that works for them. Okay, so this gives them 3 military, 2 diplomacy, and the event, which is important. They have the mercantilism. I can place a Huguenot in one French-flagged area in North America or the Caribbean. But the first thing I have to do is this. A conflict marker and a British flag marker in the Caribbean, and I have the bonus, so I get an extra diplomacy event. Okay. So, I get a conflict marker. Let's see where we're more interested. We are more interested in the Caribbean. But here's the problem. Even though we're more interested in the Caribbean, this has to be in a market. Oh, this only works in the Caribbean. Good enough. Okay. So the Caribbean's worth something to us. What do we want to take? Well, tobacco is of interest in this particular one. So I'm going to knock his tobacco advantage. How big an interest is it? I don't know, because it's 3 victory points, which is huge, but it is a debt. And later on, it gets worse. The victory points start going down, and the debt's still there, and tobacco actually becomes something that maybe you don't want to have. The victory point is still probably better than a debt, but it becomes less and less of a valued thing. Okay, so we fired that off. I have 1 extra dip here, but I can also do this. And these can all be done. I can pick one in whatever order. I also have this. The fur market, I get one of these. Okay, I am going to probably fire that off. A conflict marker and a fur market. Why the hell not? Because I may end up getting more of these things, and yeah, I know. There's another issue here, which is I could trigger this somewhere where I can use it right away, which makes things more valuable. Yes, but I want to get more of those, so we'll see what we do here. All right, what is my other card here? Court of the Sun King. Europe becomes worth more. I'm interested in Europe. These cards are not going to work for me this turn. So what do I do? Well, I start thinking, and this is where the game gets hard. I have both military and economic that I can do. The military, I have 3 points on a major action. The economic, I have 3 points on a minor action, or 2 points on a minor and 1 point on a major. I think I'll take the 3 points on the minor. I'm not allowed to unflag. Okay. However, the most victory points on the board is for a prestige space. I could grab Sardinia and get this bonus, which I'd love to do. That wouldn't be immediately available, but I'd be able to use it later on some of these diplomatic actions there. That's one thought. Then I still have 1 point left. I could use that 1 point to get me a 2 point area. Interesting. No doubt. That would be particularly interesting somewhere up here in Sweden, which I can get pretty cheap, and eventually is a military space, but is also a prestige space. I kind of like that. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to spend 2 diplomatic points to grab the British alliance with Sardinia. That puts this here. I can't use it right now. I am going to use another dip point at this point to grab the rather cheap alliance here. Yeah. Let's spend, so I have one dip point. This would cost me 2. I will spend a debt, and there's some penalty to taking debt, to get an alliance with Savoy, with a second, and this can be a major action if you want. I could have also unflagged something, but whatever. And now I have 3 military. Military gives me lots of things I can do. So the first thing I want to do, Central Europe, I have a shitty tile that I'd like to exchange. I have a not so great tile. Central Europe is worth 2 victory points for a 1-point difference. Everything else is worth 1. This is not a great tile in Spain. The Jacobite, I have a good tile. And Queen Anne's War, I have an acceptable tile. I would like to anchor my position here better. Now, currently, the only way to do that, there are a few options. Okay, hold on. Let me check building forts, whether there's indeed the restriction that I've got on them that I'm thinking. To build a fort, you must control at least 1 market, naval space, or territory connected to it. Now, connected to it does not mean these dashed lines. It means you have to have a solid line there. The only fort I can connect to directly is Louisburg. Fish are important in this game, so I am going to spend my military to flag that. Okay. That has eaten up this card, or tile. This card has gotten used, but I have one more thing I can do. I can create the New World Huguenots. That's once per turn. That's going to do this. And I put that on a French flag territory in North American or Caribbean where there isn't one already. I'm going to actually put that up here in Quebec and Montreal because furs are exceptionally valuable. And the reasoning there is now I've made that harder to take via a war because the CP cost has increased in that space. And I can do it to cheapen one of the markets adjacent to it for myself. And there's 2 interesting markets both in play right now. Lots of talk for one action. We're not going to keep this up all game. But I did want to show what we do there. And this goes here, not there. I put an investment tile up there. I'm going to move the dice to remind me that it's the English turn second. And I'm going to take a little break. Let's take a similar look at the British player's first decision. Now, the first decision in a turn, and the first couple decisions are generally kind of important. That's when the important and interesting shits are up there, the ones that people really want to play. In this case, there's a limitation on events, so events become a scarce commodity, and you want to fire off the event chits if you're going to get your event off. If I don't take this with the Brits, it means the French get a second event if they want it. Events tend to be valuable, so that's a good idea. So let's look. I have more available debt than my opponent, so I would get the bonus because I let the French go first. There was no reason to believe that this was in play. However, that requires a coinage event, and I don't have the capacity to play that. Do I? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I set myself up so I do. So that's, I think, the one I wanted to do. I don't have more prestige bases in Scotland and Ireland. I could set that up for next turn. And the Great Northern War, I do have, but I can't play that one because without using this anyway. So I'm going to fire this sucker off. This reduces my opponent's debt limit by 1. See, here's the problem. If I use this now, I don't get the bonus, reduce my debt by 2. So this becomes less valuable, but I don't have the option to play the other event because this only impacts economic events. I could hold off. This I don't get the bonus in. It's prestige in Scotland and Ireland. This one, the bonus is style, but I can't play it. Shit. Whew. Do I want to fire this event off just to hurt the French? I'm almost assured to be able to get this next turn. So maybe I want to hold off on the event. Or maybe I want to play the Acts of Union anyway. Unified Parliament in Scotland reduces Scottish intrigue in Europe. I get 1 dip point that I'm allowed to unflag in Europe. This is worth victory points. So I'm not sure I want to play an event. The French grabbed my action and stole it. And, geez. Yet I have this at the start of each turn. No, this is once per turn. I can increase my debt limit by 1. That's a useful card. I hate to give that up. And this is a useful card. I hate to give this up. But I don't have to show either right now. I also have this card, or tile, which opens me up to North America. This is wheat. Pay 1 less EP to unflag a market in North America. Unfortunately for me, I'm not adjacent to any markets that the French are in. So, what do I want to do? Well, I can remove a contact marker for 2 military. So something that gave me 2 military like this is of use. Of course, I mean, that does count to Queen Anne's War. Conflict markers in North America are going to count there. Yeah, I'm having a hard time deciding whether I want to eat that. I mean, victory points are so valuable. I hate to give up either of these victory point cards. That I could play. However, if I'm holding 3 events, that kind of hurts me. Why don't... What was the bonus on this? I'm looking... So this gives me a bonus of reducing my debt by 2. So I kind of want to use some debt. Maybe I'll be left this event. I don't know. So what will I pick? Well... Where's the value at? There's definitely value in dip. Yeah, I am going to take a 6-point tile. There's nothing that gives me the military upgrades. And use diplomacy and military. Now, for diplomacy, I want this act of union. So I am going to play Jonathan Swift. I'm playing an event, but I'm firing him off so that I can cost 1 less to flag. And what is my goal for the active union, the goal there is more prestige spaces in Scotland and Ireland. Okay, so if I fire this off, I'm going to buy, these cost 1 less to flag. I'm going to spend my 4 major event points to get me there. And now I have 2 military. If I could protect this, but there is nothing that connects to it, no forts that connect to it. So I am going to spend the 2 minor on removing that conflict. And I've done something kind of cool. I'm probably ahead in prestige spaces at 3 to 1, which is very awesome. And this is now here though. This came from the Italian. I don't have Italian influence. What the hell? Did I screw up? Yeah. Huh. Okay. So I don't have that shit yet because I didn't buy the alliance there. Okay. So the English play this one. And I spent a lot of time on that decision because it's a hard decision early on. Once you've fired off your events, once they're eaten up, once your ministry cards are gone, it becomes a lot easier to start figuring out what you want. Or if events are cheap and there's a good card, a good tile out there, you're playing a big tile to begin with. Anyway, we go back over to the French. Well, they have an event available now. Unfortunately for them, they cannot play their event with that diplomacy tile. So England gets a free pass here. What is this one? The award for Europe is worth more. Well, I don't want to turn that up yet. I'm not sure when I can turn up ministry cards. I think it's only during my action round, which means I have to be careful to remember, and I won't, to do that. If I can find where they are. It's not in here. I mean, I know it's somewhere in the rules. Advantage tiles are hidden over here. Ministry cards are not in that location. Here they are. It looks to me like I can fire it off at any time that it's useful. So I can remember, I can wait and use it during the scoring for the European situation. So what is my situation now? Well, I'll probably look for the best card I can, or tile I can, which looks like it's about a 6-point tile. So let's start looking at things. In fur, shit. I have 1 fur to my opponent's 1 fur. That's not good. I'm behind in fish. So an economic action does not sound bad. What about diplomacy? There was something I want to hear. Maybe not. It would cost me a 3 to get one of these. Either of them are useful. This is off on its own at 3. There's no tile there. Huh. Oh, this is split. Gotcha. It looked like it was just off the British there. Yeah. I love this. Yeah, why don't we take Denmark and Norway with the diplomacy? So I'm going to grab this tile. I'm going to do the major first. Well, let's do the minor first because I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab Denmark and Norway. They're available in wars for the next 3 periods, so they're kind of interesting. I'm not going to take any more debt. I'm already behind in the debt race. Although if you're going to be behind, maybe you want to be behind by a lot. Not close to the edge because that can cost you victory points. And now I got 4 points worth of expansion. Well, I'm going to flip this over and spend 2 to get me here, except I'll be French. I'm not going, I could have gone down to here, but this gets me closer to the fort, so that's kind of interesting. I'm not going, I don't know what I was going to say. I know I was going to say those words, but I don't know what they were going to compound to. You know what? Instead, let me do this. Get a fishy. That ties me up in the fishies. And that's, I don't need that connection. I just reduce the cost. And now I can go for a cheaper one here for 2. And so that's 4 points because I reduced the cost of the one. Granted, I'm fighting over an area that's worth 0 victory points, but this has 2 of the economic things on it, so that's worthwhile. And that is all that I'm doing on this round. That puts me back over to the Brits. Well, we have our event now. But we forgot to increase our debt. However, we're fairly certain the French would have grabbed one of those events if they could. So I gotta up my debt. I need to get I need to get more available debt than my opponent. Right now I'm 1 higher. If I do that, I get to reduce my own debt by 2. Well, I think I'm going to reveal this. I'm not going to play the event because my debt situation isn't problematic, but I can exhaust that for the action round and increase my debt limit. So now I'm up by 2, which means I can take a debt without, and I can regain that debt, off the play of my card when I get to it. Spaces in Ireland and Scotland are cheaper. If I control any spaces in Ireland, my minor diplomatic is less. What was the other? The Act of Union. Well, see, this one's useful right away. I can hold off on this one and use this ability next turn to make up things. I'm going to do the Act of Union instead. I have more prestige spaces in Ireland and Scotland, so that gets me the bonus. This is going to get me Unified Parliament, reduces Scottish intrigue in Europe, 1 extra diplomacy, and 2 victory points. If that's the case, I think, do I want military? Remember, I do want to increase my debt over the course of this turn, but no, I have to take this because this is the thing that allows me to trigger this. There are no other events. Great. Okay, so that was decided. So I trigger this thing off, and I'll be getting one extra point for unflagging in Europe. So my diplomacy is going to be in Europe. And I win the bonus, so I get 2 victory points, which slides this 2 towards England. Okay. Now, Ireland and Scotland are cheaper to flag, but this is unflagging. I get 1 extra for unflagging. What do I want to unflag? Well, I could unflag Ireland. That would cost me 2. Or trying to see what else I'd want to unflag. I mean, Savoy is so useless in the long run. So is Sardinia. These are only available as military spaces for this turn. Now, what's kind of nice about them is that they keep paying towards these special abilities, which are useful. However, the most victory points out there is the Prestige Award. Right now, I am ever so slightly in the lead for that. Well, just looking at costs to see what I could take away. I don't want the French getting that debt reduction, so I'm going to unflag them from there. That costs me 1 plus the 1 bonus one here. So now I have 2 left. Spaces in Ireland and Scotland are cheaper. So there's one of the 2. I got 1 more left. What do I want with that 1 extra? Do I want to be able to play with debt? So I am going to expend debt here to get that 1 extra. Right? I got some military. What am I going to do with my military? I don't know. Okay. 1 extra debt. These are prestige spaces. I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to do with my military action at the same time that I'm trying to see this. So like my military is a minor military, which means if I spend on a ship, putting a ship in place only costs me 1 because I'm not displacing someone. So I'd lose a point for that. So that's not a great deal. I'm better off grabbing something else. If I shift theaters, I'm not in good shape either. I have to pay extra for that. So what are we going to do? Sweden is not worth an extra point right now. I would rather not grab something that doesn't give me some military capability in Europe. There are nice things to do with the Dutch Republic, if I recall correctly. Like getting them on my side might not be terrible. Of course, getting the French out of here might not be terrible either, because I can flag that more cheaply. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend a debt. So now I have 2 diplomatic points left, and I unflag the French from there. There are other diplomatic points out there that are likely to be taken. So I'm not going to grab another debt right now because my debt limit is bonused, which is kind of neat. And I might gain debt off the commodities. So I'm done with the major action. The minor action is 2. I am going to try to conflict him. So I'm going to draw one of these and I get to decide where to put it. I will put it in Central Europe. That eats this event card. This is not a use once. This is not a use once. So we just move the dice. Okay. What's next? Next is the French. The French still can't do an event, but I ought to be thinking about my events. I need more available debt for this to work. I'm not there. And this one, I would need finance. Not these guys. I'm just trying to figure out what I'd be doing here. This plays with debt as well. So yeah, I can't really force the enemy to take debt on. So now it's more competition for what is going on. Well, let's take a look at the resources. I'm tied in fish. Fish is not something I necessarily want. Fur is something I do want. I'm in the lead in fur. Tobacco's worth a lot, so it's worth taking the debt on for it. So if I'm going to go for an economic, I should be fighting for the tobacco. Right now, the English do not have any tobacco. Wow, they forgot to clear that up. It's hard to see all the conflict markers. That makes economic not a terrible choice. So I will grab this. There aren't a lot of economic in there. It gets me 2 military. That's cool. And I am going to spend 4 in economics. Hey, I'm not next to this, which is a pity because I could do something with it if I were. I am going to grab St. James and Caicos. I'm not going to spend any debt. And then for the military, I am going to grab another bonus war chit. And this is a guy who adds debt and adds to a war. This is pretty low value. Possibly a treaty point. I will throw this in here rather than there, I think, unless I'm kind of shitty there, but that's okay. It's kind of a crappy counter to have there because it takes care of forts and flags. I was forced to have that there, though. That was my starting counter. And now we're done with the third action for the French. That puts us to the Brits again. There are no more events, so I can't play anymore, but I got to keep thinking about them. Which means I probably want to grab one more debt of some sort or another. Okay. Now, what do I want to do in terms of victory points gathering? These wars don't give me too much. Central Europe can get me conquest points in interesting places. Not in Europe. Well, some of them are. Gibraltar, Minorca, which is just kind of useless. I'm playing with an optional rule that I don't know if I mentioned, the Spanish one. I don't think I went into all the rules on it. If I take an uncontrolled Spanish territory, for example, Gibraltar, that shifts one political space in Spain by the enemy. So at the end of a war, I could piss off Spain by taking conquests there, which may not be a great idea, except there's this, which is kind of cool. I can send an enemy navy home with that. Minorca is probably not worth taking. Some of these others, more worthwhile. Asiento allows me to build squadrons more cheaply, once per turn. This one gives me unflagging capabilities. These are useful little abilities that come with those Spanish territories. So, it's not a clear thing. And on the other side, yes, I could take like Hudson Bay or Acadia away, which Arcadia, unfortunately, I could not unless... I can't get that without getting Louisburg. And Hudson Bay, the fact that that's unconnected, I think, means I can just grab it without a conquest line. Well, let's put it this way. There are no conquest lines to Hudson Bay. So I can just grab it. And that comes with a fur market. Okay. So what am I doing with the English? I want a good tile. Military would let me get my boats out. If I leave a military, though, I'm guaranteed to be able to still play one. So I'm going to play this. There's a war turn coming up. I'm going to play this. Dip in military. Now, what's my bonus? Spaces in Ireland and Scotland cost 1 less to flag. Okay. That's 1. And remember, now I have this too. I have nothing else going for me. I got 3 more points that I could spend. I don't know what to take. 3 more points that I could spend. I am willing to take a debt on. This is less interesting to me. That's the problem. Russia, Sweden, and Bavaria. I can't take this yet. This is green. And more importantly, it says Empire only. These things are not green, even though they look it. So that was actually appealing, but I don't get it. I would love to unflag Bavaria cheaply and then take it. That's not going to happen. My prestige space lead is currently only +2. That's pretty good. I'm going to take cheap military spaces and spend a debt, because I've got a debt to spend. Now I've got 2 military that I can spend. Now, that military I want to spend, I'm going to draw another bonus tile. Although I really do need to deploy my ships at some point. I don't want to do it with a minor. Louis William lets me break a fort, or I don't remember what this flip marker is. It's not in the player aids. You have to look in one little section in the rules that you gotta find. Remove fleet. That could be useful. The French have a fort here, so we're going to play this here. No, not there. We're going to play this in Queen Anne's War in order to dispute that fort. And that's my 3rd British tile. That puts me over to the French. This is their last action. What do they want to do? I don't know. Let me stop so that my wife can make food. Turns out I'm the one making food. My wife just grabbed some chips. I kind of knew that already, but I thought she was making a snack. I thought it was earlier than it is. And no, it's time for me to make dinner. Okay. So over here, the French, what are we looking at? Court of the Sun King. We'd like to take Europe. But right now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's out of our reach. It really is. There's just no way we're going to get it. So we're not going to reveal that card, which is kind of advantageous. What do we got here? Military spending overruns. Need more debt, available debt than my opponent, not helpful. But in conjunction with tax reform, we might be in good shape going into next turn if we shift things around. So that's not terrible. Do I have a second here? I did my Huguenots flip, but I haven't taken advantage of it yet. So one of the problems is I handed the Brits the opportunity to go last, which means they get to see the board before it's scored and take one last turn. So unless it's a situation like Europe where it's like, yeah, I can't catch that, or it's not worth catching that, I have to shift to a different side of things. What about the war? I don't know. Again, there's such a web, so many different places where you're competing in this game that it's very easy to kind of start getting a tunnel vision as to what you're supposed to do. So I'm in the lead on fur. I am not in the lead on fish, and fish is exceedingly valuable. Well, it comes with a debt. Tobacco is the valuable one. Let's check our tobacco situation again. We're at 2. The English are at 0 right now because they have that conflict. I feel pretty comfortable there. I'm tied in fish. Let me take a look at India. India, I have 4 to 4. I could gain something in India pretty easily. And I could actually do something cool and grab some of these markers with a diplomacy chit in India. Yeah. Conceding the wars, perhaps? I'm going to grab this. I am going to flag Maharatha and Mysore. Now this kind of sucks because I don't get these this turn in India. For my economic, I want to get a fishy. Fishy, I flipped that so I can't use that again. I'm going to grab the lead in fishies, but that's going to cost me a debt. And then I put this here. And this is really doesn't, serve anything except, what do these say? Investment. Great. Okay. On to the English. I've got minor diplomatic bonus. There aren't any. I got no choice in terms of tile. But I do have choices as to how I'm going to use it. Once per turn, you may play an economic. I don't need that. Okay, so what am I going to do with this? I got 4 military points, and I've got 2 economic. My 4 military points can do me some cool stuff. Let's take a look at the prestige market. This is important. 1, 2, 3. I am in the lead for prestige, right? Versus 1 French. I don't have to win there. I've got the European War. I've got the European field and the prestige. I've got the 2 European rewards coming to me. What about the wars? Austria, Bavaria, Denmark, Dutch, Germany. Governance, Sardinia, Spain, squadrons. Okay. Governance, Sardinia, Spain, squadrons. I don't really like this. So he's got Sardinia, Spain. He doesn't have a governance showing. I don't have a governance showing. He's got a 2-point lead on me right now there. And a tile. 1 victory point plus. He could get a conquest point very easily in Spain from that. I could make a play for Spain. A strong play. On the other hand, over here, Central Europe, Austria, Bavaria, Denmark, Norway, Dutch Republic, German states, Savoy. I'm assuming we're pretty close there. Again, I could count it and then make a better guess, but I still don't know these. I can look at my own. They're pretty damn good. I'm assuming I can win that. Queen Anne's War. I've got the lead here. What about the military stuff? Conflict markers, there aren't any forts. The French have a fort, and there are no squadrons. So right now the French have +1 over there, but I've got 2 tokens, and 1 can damage the fort and take it out of the competition. I probably can win this. It would be neat if I could get it to 3, but I don't have that. The Jacobite Rebellion may be very important. If the French can win by 3 or more, well, that doesn't look likely because that's Dutch Republic. Oh, this is why. This is why Dutch Republic is important. It counts for the Jacobite Rebellion and for the Central European War. So it's like double counted. And there's nothing that indicates that on the map. Style, I have style up. The French do not. They have mercantilism. Dutch Republic, Ireland, Scotland, that's all great conflict markers. I'm probably going to get a big bonus there. I don't need anything there. Let's make that play for Spain. So what I'm going to do for Spain is I'm going to spend 2 of my military and grab these. They're military points in 2 eras. They're prestige points for the entire game. Here's what's wrong with doing this. Those can expand me. So if I can go in here, I can start playing with those fishies or something like that. Definitely an issue. Let's deprive the French of something as well. We have 2 economic points. We could deprive the French of the fishies. What about tobacco? Tobacco is more valuable. The French have 2 tobacco spaces. Military points can be used anywhere. Remove conflict marker. I could spend 2 debt to remove a conflict marker. Let's get that out of there. Let's spend, do I want to do that? Is there another tobacco somewhere? Yeah. Let's spend 2 economic points here. So I'm spending 2 debt on the military to clean up my problem there. I don't have a fort, so it costs me 2. If I'm right. 1 if it's in protected, 2 otherwise. And now I'm going to spend the 2 other to get that tobacco here, and that'll even things up. That is the end of the action, which throws us to discard treaty points. If anybody had treaty points over 4, they would lose them here. You're allowed to carry a few over. For the most part, you don't want to because, you know, they're valuable. They can get you your score for any given turn, which can get you more treaty points, all kind of stuff like that. The war can get you more treaty points. So we go to resolve remaining powers. Nobody has anything that happens at this moment. So that now we're going to hit the scoring phase. My alarm hasn't gone off yet, so we can do this, I think. We won't be able to do the war yet. So for scoring, the first thing we do is we look up here. North America, 1, 2, 3, 4, English, 1, 2, 3, 4. This doesn't decline anything. 5, 6, 7, 8. The French get the advantage there. It's not worth any victory points, but it's worth a treaty point. I don't think there are any pure zeros. I'm going to put this over here. There's another set of them underneath for the second turn in the period. Let's go over here. The French have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The English have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They lose again. The French get a victory point, and this one goes away. You'll see we're not doing that well, even though we went last. We concentrated on other things. Okay. Over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the French. 1, 2, 3, 4. The French get a victory point and a treaty point. And they're really kind of kicking ass. Except the English had a lot of points here in Europe. So Europe's only worth 1. They clearly get that 1 point, and that drops this back down. They also have the prestige points, which is 2 more victory points. And you can see that's about what the French got off of all of this. You shouldn't be doing the prestige yet. Technically, there's no harm in doing so. Let's go to the next thing, which is furs. The French have 1, 2 fur. The English have only 1. The French get the fur advantage. This was the one I should have taken away. That's worth 2 victory points and a treaty point. And I'm being stupid, probably because I'm trying to hurry along. Fishies. Fishies should be tied. 2 French fishies? No. The French get the fishies too. That's 2 victory points, but they also get a debt off that. That's not good. And I've got to go run very quickly. And the last one is the tobacco, which I think the English canceled out the French advantage on. So that's 2 and 2. Tobacco doesn't score. That would have been 3 more victory points and a debt. So the French are ahead by a point. Maybe more importantly, they got 3 treaty points out of this. But the English have a very powerful position in Europe, and Europe affects a couple of the wars. Actually, 3 of the wars are in Europe. So that concentration on Europe may end up proving very, very important towards them. If one player had won all 4 regions and all 3 commodities, or all the available commodities, they would end up winning the game at this point. That didn't happen, so we go to a special scoring sequence that's known as a war phase, and we'll do that in a moment. So for the war phase, you resolve each war in order. That's actually important, unlike the scoring over here, because some of the wars can affect each other. And okay, so the first thing we do is we turn these over to see what we got. And the Brits have a huge advantage in points. The French have 2 things, though. In Central Europe, first they can get rid of a flag. It can unflag a political space. This is a big deal. I'm going to be facing a pretty heavy battle here. There's 5 points there. I get to see everything. I'm canceled out. Austria, Bavaria, Denmark. Okay, let's see. Austria, we're even. Bavaria, that's +1 for the French. Denmark, Norway is empty. Dutch Republic brings us to +1 for British. German states brings us to +3 for British. And Savoy brings us to +2 for British. This is important because I can look here and see, if I drop another British political, an alliance space, that would drop their strength down, but it would only drop it to 1. The chart says 1 and 2 gives 1 thing. So I can go after something more valuable than a political space. I could look at the next turn's war. I feel like that's kind of cheating. I'm going to make them lose an Ireland space. That doesn't affect this war. So the net total, oh, I got another thing. That does a fort or a fleet. Okay, so I can force a fleet. Oh, never mind. I am not going to do that. I am going to take a military space instead. Let's take this one. I don't know why. I like it. Okay. I have something that gets to chase a fleet away too. So I can drop it to 1 and then to 0 for the fleet. Did I cheat there? No, the fleets don't affect this. Never mind. However, I may be interested in the Dutch Republic space instead. Here's why. There's another battle that affects the Dutch Republic, isn't there? The Jacobites do. So I care about that. So I'm going to take away the military for the Dutch Republic. I'm also going to chase one of their fleets away because of this. Now, I think I got the numbers right. I hope I got them right. So they're at a 1. The English get 2 victory points in their favor. The French get yet another treaty point. If I did my counting right. Now, if I screwed up, it's too late. That means nothing really changes hands. If we had gotten here, there could be conquest points. All right, the next war is in Spain. And here, the French have +1, but they inflict 2 debt on the British. And the Brits only have +1 as well. So we're both at +1. Governance. Nobody has it. If you have that keyword, you get an extra point for that. Sardinia. That's a point for France. Spain is a point for France. And the squadrons, well, it's a good thing that I took one of them away, because I was at +2. Now I'm down to +1. That gives France a victory point and the English a treaty point. Again, nothing exciting changes hands. Queen Anne's War over in North America. Flip these over. The French are at +1. The English are at +2, but they can kill a fort or chase a squadron. Well, it's not kill. They can damage a fort. There are no squadrons there, but I can put this here and that negates that fort for the scoring. Okay, and the English are at +2, the French are at +1. There are no conflict markers in the region. There are no forts in the region. There are no squadrons in the region. This all goes to 0. So then we go to the Jacobite Rebellion. We flip these over. The French are at +2, but the English inflict a debt on them. And remember, the debt is kind of the opposite of treaty points in a sense. Okay, and now style. The English have style. I gotta think. The French have the capability to flip that over and make the Jacobite Rebellion one higher. So they may want to do that. So we were at a net of 2 points for the French. Now we're at 1. The Dutch Republic does not have a combat space. This one has no dots on it, so it doesn't contribute. Ireland, the English have 1 in Ireland. That brings us to 0. Scotland, the English go up to +1. Conflict markers, there are none. England gets a victory point unless I flip this card over. I think the option on the card, given that, what is it? It's style and scholarship and the award for Europe, which is kind of out of our reach right now. I think we're going to hold that off and let the English get their victory point. And there's no award for us. Now, we check to see if somebody won. Did somebody win all of the theaters at maximum value? No. That would create an automatic victory. All the conflict markers come off the map. Did anybody leave any lying around? No. This is a big deal. Every time there's actually, that's a lie. It's all the conflict markers in regions with wars. And I might have to look in the errata to understand what they mean by that. I'm much happier with all the conflict markers are removed. In particular, obviously, India, a conflict in India wouldn't be affected by these wars. But the Caribbean wouldn't be affected. But the question is, in Europe, is it only these spaces that are on the war or whatever? I think it's a lot easier to just say they all go away. But that's not right according to the errata. Exchange bonus war tiles for the next war set. Okay. There's one other thing that happens here. All war tiles go back to their pools. So these are the basic war tiles for the French. They're going to go here, and they're going to get reshuffled in. The specific war tiles for this era get put away, and we'll pull a new era and shuffle that, in case there's some bias, and put that in the bonus war tiles. And the same thing happens for the English. Their basic tiles, which are less specific looking, go in one place, and then we get a new set of bonus war tiles. You could just reshuffle the bonus war tiles. You'd lose historical flavor, but their impact is exact. Each war has the same impact. I find that a little disappointing. I would kind of like each war to have its own actual game effect that's a little different. Now, obviously, since you're randomly drawing not very many tiles in each war, it's not that big a deal, but I don't know. I would like more specialization there. And then it's the war layout phase, in which case we flip this war over and we go to the War of the Austrian Succession. And what we need to do is put basic war tiles on each of these, and then that's the war that we're going to be facing coming into the next turn. And we've hit the peace. In terms of victory situation, the English are a little ahead. Their big gamble, or their big play in Europe, ended up neutralizing the slight French advantage that I think we had, because they weren't playing in as many regions. So that is something to keep in mind. It all kind of balances out unless you're stupid or really heavily outplayed. You know, of course, you could play heavily for a region that's not worth anything, and that probably will hurt you pretty severely. But yeah, we're in the next turn of this period. We'll be staying in the same period. The same ministry cards are going to be in play, with the exception that the French have the option to withdraw one. They gave up a victory point for that option, so it's a big deal. And that was probably dumb, to tell you the truth. It would be a break-even game, but then I'd have to figure out who has the initiative. And now it is definitely the French. And other stuff is going to all be cleaned up in the course of the next real turn. So like these tokens, they slide away during that and everything. All right, let's send this up. We got through one piece in one war turn. I think that gives us a fair idea. I'm probably not going to go in anywhere near this amount of detail for the rest of the game. But I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying describing everything for some reason. But I kind of hit on that. In a sense, describing every action in a more Euro type of game, where I'm making these decisions and I'm talking them out in real time and everything. These games don't tend to have as many complexities, as many pieces, as much mechanical stuff going on. So it feels a little bit more appropriate, and it also takes my mind away from the fact that I'm just making these damn optimization choices. And I kind of like doing them on video, but I really kind of don't like making those decisions when I'm like in the silence of my game. What I want to be doing is enjoying the story of the game. I would really hate making these decisions in an opposed play. So, you know, obviously this is a game that's not meant to be played solo in any sense of the word. But I get a certain kick out of that with some similarly, some games that have similar situations of hidden information and everything. With this one though, I feel like I'm just more comfortable making these decisions while I'm talking them through. And I don't know why. But I also don't know if I want to waste, you know, several hours of video going through it, because it does take longer to describe everything on the video. Anyway, I wanted to get that last bit in.